Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I have three kind of interesting books. Well, they're interesting to me. Hope they're interesting to you to talk about today. And it coincided, this adventure of books, it coincided with a trip to Toronto. And I haven't been to Toronto in over 2 years, I guess. The last time I was there was before the pandemic broke out, and visiting my mom in a retirement home. And so she's only seen me, well, she hasn't even seen me by Zoom because she went into the home with post-stroke with almost no computer literacy. So we didn't set that up. And in hindsight, I think it was a mistake. I think she eventually would have got it. But anyways, the reality was she hasn't seen my face for quite a long time. So she was very happy to look at this mug. And I had this idea that I was going to do a reading vlog while traveling. And I didn't really think about the books that I was picking with relation to the vlog. I just chose the books based on whether I thought they'd be good traveling books, and weight and size and number of pages, that sort of thing. And then it turns out that on return, I made the discovery that all three are about hotels. So that was kind of fun. The second thing is that the vlog idea completely tanked out because I thought that I would be reading through the days as we went along, maybe while she was getting her hair cut, or while I was waiting for her while she went for lunch, because I wasn't allowed to attend her at the dining room and so forth. So I thought there'd be moments, but it was just so action-packed. And when she was where I wasn't, I was doing a chore for her or trying to organize something. And Burlington, where I was, didn't have or has lost recently all of its taxi service, which was what I was counting on. I'm not a driver, and so the last time I was there, it was simple. Call a cab. This was not so simple, and so part of my journey was completely turned topsy-turvy because I had to call my sister-in-law to come and rescue us. And she was glad to do it, and I was glad to ask, but it was just, like not part of the plan. So it was it just wasn't very relaxed in order to just say, oh, I'm sitting here at such and such a cafe reading this book. It didn't work. I would be in the hotel room, lying in bed, completely crushed with exhaustion, and all you would see is my big, double chin pooching out, and me saying something about the books. I thought, that's not very good television or video, so I abandoned ship, although I was amusing, just in case you want to know how it went. So the first book that I read before I left was The Maid by Nita Prose, and as many of you know, if you're on YouTube, BookTube, this has been going the rounds. I believe she's a Canadian author. Am I wrong about that? No. She's Canadian from Toronto, so yeah, this has been getting a lot of hot hits and a lot of great reviews. So if you Google this, you're going to get lots of opinions on it. I really liked it. The main character is Molly, and she is a maid in presumably a downtown Toronto. And I'm making that assumption, because is that true? No, it's not true. It's not true. She must be in New York. The Regency Grand Hotel, which doesn't actually have a true place in geography. Anyhow, she is a young lady with a bit of neurodivergency, and so I'm making an assumption that she's on the autism spectrum somewhere. She has a very methodical look on things. She's got a whole set of rules that helps her to cope with society. She doesn't have the best it's sort of over-filtered in that she has this buffer between her and reality, and a lot of it just doesn't come in. So she will take teasing and not really understand that it's teasing. So she takes everything very literally. And there's been a murder in the hotel, and she becomes a prime suspect because she's just one of these people that's easy to manipulate. And luckily for her, there are a couple of people who are on her side in the hotel. And she's just caught betwixt and between hotel staff who are on the bad side, and a couple of hotel staff who have known her grandmother and have watched her grow up as a young child, and then she gets this job at the hotel. So she's got some lifelong friends who are helping her. So they managed to figure out who they think the murderer is, or if they haven't quite got that figured out, they've figured out a way to wiggle out the information. So it's quite an interesting melodrama in a way. I found the tension really interesting. I was keyed in the whole way through, and as we were approaching the ending and the pages are getting less and less, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be one of those boobity boom endings. But no, actually there was a slow reveal, and by the end of the book it was not so much about who'd done it but how to get them, which was kind of an interesting change on things. And well, I just really enjoyed it the whole way through. I was not taking breaks. This was actually, I think I even stayed up till 1 in the morning to finish this book, so that's a good sign. I believe this is her debut novel, so I'm looking forward to anything else that she chooses to write. Nita Prose, The Maid. So the next book I read, I had picked this up, I think, spontaneous purchase in Lunenburg last summer, but I just didn't, sort of August, I guess, and I didn't get around to reading it, and I kept thinking, oh, that'll be a really good book for when I can sit down and concentrate. So plane, hotel, so I chose The Feast, and that is by Margaret Kennedy. This was a little bit of a popular choice back in August, and it was on the table in the bookstore as a new release in paperback, and the cover captured my attention, and the title captured my attention, and then the story captured my attention. It was published in 1950, but the setting is in 1947, and it is in the Cornish seaside resort area. This is a home that has been transformed into a hotel, and the Mrs. Siddell is very determined that she's going to be able to make enough money off this hotel to be able to send her younger 2 sons to further education. Mr. Siddell is a lawyer, but he's decided to just become completely inept. And there are 3 boys who are sort of, one's an adult and is a doctor, and the other 2 are sort of approaching career moments. And they've, the eldest, Jerry, has been sort of overlooked and taken advantage of, and he's sort of a plodding, flat-footed, but earnest, sincere kind of guy. And the 2 younger brothers are okay. There's nothing particularly wrong with them, except that they are quite okay with taking advantage of older brother Robin. So that's the family. Then there's a couple of employees, and in the employee group we've got someone who's just very nasty, gossipy, manipulating kind of a person, and we've got someone else who's a Cornish maid who is very not innocent. She's had some trouble in her life, but she's just a good person. A couple other people, and then we've got the guests, and amongst the guests there are the good guys or gals and the innocents. And what's going to happen, and we know this from the outset of the book, is that there is going to be a big crash of the rock face above the hotel is going to come down and suffocate the hotel. And we know within the first 3 or 4 pages that there are 7 people who were victims to that. So there are 22 characters in this story, I believe, and 7 of them aren't going to make it. So it's a bit of a game, or that's how I took it. I took it as a bit of a game to try and decide if all the bad people are in this hotel. I'm going to stop because the cat's using the litter box. I'll be back. Okay, Missy feels a lot better. And it doesn't smell so good. Cats. Okay, so there are 22 characters in the story, and if just the bad guys end up in, there she goes, in the disaster, then it's not much of a story, right? So I figure there's going to be some bad guys in the disaster, and there's going to be some innocent people in the disaster. So as I'm reading the story and getting to know the characters, and they've got their personalities are very well crafted, and they do things that definitely make you want to love them or hate them. So I'm thinking, I know, but if that person is in the disaster, then that means that person who's good could help rescue that person who's also good. So it's just this game I'm playing with myself the whole way through the book. The tension really builds because nobody is aware that the rock face is going to fall. And so that becomes part of the story too, because the owners of the house have been informed, but somehow the information has gone missing. So we've got this tension all of a sudden about, oh my God, what are we doing? Are we sitting in a potential disaster zone? Some people realize it, and other people's are just like, oh, well, what we don't know for sure can't hurt us type of attitude. So there's lots of very small actions between individuals where we get the housekeeper and the maid, going head to head, and really being the one who's the crabby old lady is really, really awful, and the younger girl is just, I need to get out of this workplace. I can't work here anymore. This is too toxic. So we see that evolve over the course of the book, and it gets more and more intense as we approach the ending. And so there are plenty of interactions between the different characters, and they're very well what would you say, they are done in such a way that they really help with the building of the tension and the sort of not even if the cliff mystery, I'm going to say mystery, because even if the cliff face isn't going to happen, there's this question about so many of them. How are they going to how are they going to go forward after this week is over? Will the young girl who's being completely oppressed by her father be able to break through? Will this little budding love story be able to continue? Will such and such a misunderstood child be understood? So even without, this looming danger in the background that only the reader knows about, there's still just some very interesting questions of how the book will evolve. So yeah, really loved it. Top book for me this year. And now, did she write other things? I'm pretty sure she did. But yes, she did do quite a lot of other books, and some of them were adapted into plays. So Margaret Kennedy, I think, is an author to go back into the backlist and take a look for if you're looking for. I'm making a presumption that everything is as well written as this book. This book, I think, has got the same kind of classic tones that Cold Comfort Inn would have, or what is that one about the castle? I lived in the castle. I can't remember what that is now. It's completely gone from my head. Is Jody Smith? We have always lived in the castle. Not that kind of story, but that kind of era. But so let me say that sentence again. It's not those kinds of stories, but it's written in that era and with that kind of intense setting, intense characters. So I think this is really a very, very strong contender to be a long-time classic. All right, well, I finished that book. And the other choice I had was Food Security by Ralph Martin, which is for another book club, and it's very good for you. I was not in the mood for very good for me. I was definitely in the mood for 9-ounce glasses of red wine. So I picked up my second book that I took with me, and it is The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. And this was published in 2021. Now, I think, I don't know, there's a couple of movies out on Netflix that I'm not sure this isn't adapted into a movie. I could be wrong, because I think there's a couple of movies where a group of people go to some kind of holiday place and they become stranded, and so there's murder. So this has a similar, so I'm not positive that's a movie, but it is of that ilk. So Ellen and her boyfriend Wade have gone up. Yeah, it is Wade, isn't it? Have gone up to a hotel that her brother Isaac's girlfriend, Laura, works at. And they are having an engagement party. And the it's in Switzerland, in the mountains, and there's a weather event happening, and they make it up to the hotel just in the nick of time. And so there's all kinds of snow blocking the roads, and there's an avalanche lower down the road, which means that the trucks can't plow through, and it's just terrible for helicopters. There's not going to be any kind of airlifting. And we have someone who's a skier discovering a body of someone who'd gone missing years earlier, before the hotel opened. And we've got all this mystery about the building itself. It used to be a sanatorium and for TB patients, and someone has purchased it and has decided to develop it into a world-class ski resort. And there's his sister, who is the sort of administrator of everything. A staff person is lost, missing, and then is found in really bizarre circumstances, with a really peculiar mask and a really peculiar mutilation. And so Ellen, who is a policewoman from the UK, who's currently on sort of sick leave, is the only person up there who can cope with what's going on. She is on the phone with the Swiss police. Hello. No, don't do that. With the Swiss police, and she's getting some permission to do investigation, and she's doing a little bit more than she's supposed to, because she feels if she doesn't, she's going to lose grip of the situation. So some of her stuff is kind of sneaky, the investigation she's doing. So there's that tension. There's another person missing. There's another person missing. And the weather's getting more crazy. The lockdown is getting more crazy because, food, rationing, that kind of thing, heat, people are getting more scared. And so that's the mystery. Who done it? It's a who done it. And I really enjoyed it. Ellen is an interesting character. She's been involved in a case before that was totally traumatic. And I don't want to give that away because there's something in her past that keeps bubbling up. I had a couple of problems with this one. Definitely Ellen's past I found really intrusive, and also this past case that caused her to have a meltdown and need to be on a leave of absence. Not really clear what happened in it. There was a very brief description that was so short that I kind of almost missed it, and then I thought, okay, what did they say? And I tried to find it again, and I couldn't find it again. But that's the only real indicator as to what happened, and just a very short little insight to it. So that was kind of an irritant, really. And then the other part that got on my nerves a couple of times, and I guess it's all part of developing tension, is that she would, in the face of this serial murderer, take off on her own. And like everybody who was a victim had been alone. So why is she trotting around without a gun on her own trying to investigate things? And it's clear that the murderer is accelerating. Now, if everybody had just stayed in the dining room with sleeping bags, we wouldn't have a book. So I guess that's why she's got to go out on her own. But it was done so in the face of the other people who kept saying to her, don't do that, Ellen, don't do that, Ellen. And then she would just trot off. So I don't, that little piece kind of bothered me. So I was reading this book on the last day of my trip to Toronto, and I had quite a relaxed day. So I did a lot of reading, several hours of reading, and I read it on the plane coming home. I thought it was a great travel book. It's got just enough tension and action to keep you engaged, but it's clear enough and clean enough that if you've got to put it down for a couple of hours to do whatever, you can pick it back up and you haven't really lost anything. I think this book, in a way, if you take it with you on vacation and you stay put, it's going to be a great book. If this is a book that you want to read like while you're doing things, catching a train, having, you know, like that kind of action-packed vacation. There are too many characters in this. This is a sit down and read it book, and this is a pick it up and put down kind of book. So, but top drawer for this one, and this one not quite so top drawer, but certainly a very good take it along with you kind of book. And certainly the author kept the tension going. I was committed to it all the way through. And in fact, the person who done it, I would say I only had an inkling that that might be the case. You know, it crossed my mind a couple of times, but there wasn't enough supporting evidence to really buy it. So yeah, I would say I was surprised at the conclusion. I understand there's another book coming. In fact, it might even be out. It's called The Retreat. And Ellen, again, goes to an eco-wellness place on the English coast for relaxation when another body is found. And then another body is found. She suspects there's nothing accidental about these deaths. So that'll be good for the next, I'll get that in June or something like that. Okay, that's it for me. I hope all your reading adventures and dreams continue to come true. And let's see what else. I saw the tips of a hosta. I know it's a hosta because it's a piece of garden that is always a hosta. I noticed it as I was walking to the gym. Little bit of hosta coming up through the ground. So we're getting to the end of winter. It's just delightful.